So I'm actually not going by an image today. So just in my mind, I can see the path. You see I've kind of mapped out where I want everything-ish. I'm not going to always stick to that. But I'm just going to take some markers. And I'm not going to like draw carefully. I'm going to hold the marker loosely on the end. And I'm just going to kind of do some scribbles in the general direction of what I want to do. Okay, so now I'm going to start with what I sometimes call a puffy brush or a blending brush. I just want something with lots of bristles, and these are nice and thick. That way, something that holds lots of paint. And I'm going to go fairly wet in the beginning. So I'm going to take some blue, and I'm just going to start doing this kind of loose up in the sky area. And then while that's still going there, I'm going to take some pure white, and I'm going to scrumble into that. Golden paints have a really high pigment load, so this is very vivid. I'm going to put some of that in the path too. Notice I'm also holding the brush kind of at the end. I've really learned lately that one of the hardest things is to stay loose. You notice I'm kind of going up the sky and then I'm coming down to where the path is going to be. That's kind of intentional because you want the same colors in the path because it's wet and reflective. So you kind of want a similar color scheme in there as what's in the sky. I am also going to turn this for a second. And I'm going to spray some water along the top of that path. And let it drip. This is a wet wipe. Wipes have alcohol in them, so they will remove paint even if it's semi-dry. I like sometimes that to pull some of the paint off. I want that sky to be kind of interesting, and you notice that helps some of my marks show again a little bit. I'm just playing. I used to really hyper plan everything I put here on YouTube, and I was working really hard to try and reach 1,000 subscribers and monetize and all of these things, but I was losing myself as an artist in the process of trying to please everyone. Now, I'm still wanting to please you, of course. I want to do things that are useful for you, things that are helpful. But if I'm not having fun and I'm not monetizing anytime soon, and I've got this long road ahead of doing all these videos of things that I think you might want to see me paint, but I'm not having a good time, then I figure, you know, what's it for? Especially, that's kind of cool. You know, especially the hyper-realism is really not my jam. So as you can see, hopefully you can see that, I'm backlighting the canvas, that created some very interesting effects. So now I'm actually going to use some fluorescence. Isn't that cool? And you're going to get, yeah, it's a light yellow fluorescent, but because I'm putting it on top of some blue, it's going to be really interesting looking. And I think I'm going to put it over the whole thing because everything underneath is dry. So because I dried it, it's just going to put another layer of color on top. And isn't it really pretty? Like, it's just wonderful. Fluorescents are great. You don't always want them, but you know what? When you want a certain mood of a painting, they just are wunderbar. So I'm going to make some areas a little brighter than others. This isn't going to be, of course, the final layer, but so at this point we got the whole canvas covered, which is wonderful. But before I do another color in the lower, I'm going to go back up to the top. And I'm going to put some quinacridone magenta on the top, but I'm mixing it with quite a bit of water. So that just means putting my brush in water and then wiping some of the paint off, just so I have just hints of it. See, just like a very watery effect. This is cool. Not everywhere. I just want a little bit of pink, just a little bit. Nice. Now, because I got pink there, I'm going to put a little bit of pink down in here too, just for fun. Now, it's a little bit dry, so I'm just going to take a sponge, which is wet, and just spread it a little bit. Sponges are great painting tools. I often like sponges more than I like brushes. And I'm just going to get a little straight blue because I find the sky a little bit one note. So I'm just going to bring in some darker blue. And with the blending brush, you can just kind of put it wherever you like and kind of blend it in a little bit. Kind of in the top and maybe on the right hand side, just a little bit. And kind of blend it out. I use my fingers a lot when I blend. I know, most people wouldn't do that, but I like to do that. And now I'm just going to start kind of working this area. A little green in the middle. That was just blue on top of that fluorescent yellow. And maybe some pink there on top of some of that fluorescent yellow. And of course that pink would reflect on the path. So every time I put a color one place, I got to put it another. I maybe put another pink tree kind of over here. So I'm basically blocking in the background of some trees now. And I'm going to switch to my different sponge. Because if you've watched some tutorials, you've noticed, remember me saying that I sometimes like my Swiss cheese sponge. I keep dripping on the canvas with my wet hands, but I don't mind that. Because you'll see when you drip on a canvas and then you blot it, it pulls paint back off, which I think creates some interesting effects in and of itself. But I like this one because it's got Swiss cheese effect there. So if you dab it on, you can literally get some really cool leaves. So color blocking. So when I'm doing leaves, I don't want every color everywhere. I want a little more drastic here. Another reddish bush right there. So now I'm just going to go a little bit lighter. And this is not my final pass on these trees. This is just kind of the first step. Aware that I need to do something with this. I think I'm going to kind of give it a bit of a earthy brown vibe. And I mean, I maybe should have done that before, but you notice I'm painting a lot with a sponge. I'm probably going to do that more as time goes on, and then I'm not trying to paint this evenly or beautifully. I'm just getting some color down here and the sort of shape of the path, defined a little more. Nothing in a painting should ever be just one color. So I always try and observe that. A few little bushes along the path because I don't want the path to just kind of happen. There we go. So, you know, things might be getting a little busy, but it's all good. Remember that green gold? It looks like green. Often when you put it on, it's almost got a yellowy tinge to it, and I really love the shade. I mixed some Azarian crimson with my bright green, and then a little white to create kind of a grayed down. When you add the complementary color, it grays down a color. I just wanted a few little more green. Yeah, I'm really, one of the reasons I'm painting with the sponge is to keep myself from being tempted to go too real. So I just really don't want to. I'm just making a few more interesting shapes with this one. So it's because it's just, I'm finding it's looking a little one note and a little bit bright. So I'm adding a bit more grays into the mix here. And this is a very grayed down green. especially in the background here. I just want that to be not so bright. We want a little bit of drama areas. I need some bright yellow. Let's put a bright yellow shrub. There. I need my flat brush. Flat brushes are great for shadows. So now I'm going to make colors. You notice I didn't keep doing the path with my sponge because it was just pulling too much and getting a little dry. So now I'm going back to put some more reflections in the path. And I'm going to put my flat brush along where the line of the path is going to be, but I'm pulling straight that way, very lightly. And you can also pull in lines with the brush forming a horizontal line on its own, and that makes some really interesting lines. One of the challenges that I find, I'm going to have to redo those bushes, is I tend to, like, every color I overdo it just a little bit. And then I have to, like, pull back a little bit. Yeah, I just need a little bit of pinks in here. A little bit of pink in the ground over here too, just for fun. Pink and green are kind of complementary colors, so the pink on top of the green will kind of, I don't know, warms it up a bit, and it kind of deadens it a bit too, so it's not quite so lively. This is me doing the back and forth thing. You guys probably heard me say before, I'm a self-taught painter, so I'm not always perfect when it comes to getting things exactly the first time. And I do also use my fingers a lot because I've always found them to be a lot more beneficial. Like, look at how beautiful that is. Just to run your finger through that wet paint, it makes such beautiful little marks. I mixed like a kind of an icky dark green. And I'm going to take a palette knife now and I'm going to kind of carve in just some little branch structures. And I'm not putting tons. You just need to give the eye sort of the idea of, okay, oh, there's twigs in there. And some dark to the brown too. How's that well around it? Sort of behind the trees. Palette knife also helps you stay looser. You can't be as specific with a palette knife as you can with a brush. Now I can use a wet, clean brush, and I chose this one to kind of grab some of that color and kind of pull it because I like that darkness. It's making me happy. So I just kind of want a little bit more of that darkness. Kind of back in here. And then I'm going to create some deep shadows along the edge of the path here. Notice how when there was no whites it looked funny, but when there's no darks or shadows it looks equally funny. And it's just the nature of painting, because the whole world visually is light and dark. Anyway, it's kind of developed into a light green, and I'm going to fix these edges. I actually really like that color. And where there's pure white, now that it's dry, I can put another color kind of on there that makes a little more sense. So with every layer, it gets more and more sort of realism based. There, now, I'm always going back and forth, and I noticed that I've lost more of my, I've lost a few colors. So this Pyroli red that I used a little bit of, I want to just put a shock of it on somewhere in a few spots. And as well as the blue sky needs to come down here a little bit. Those are the two things that my eye is noticing at the moment. And the more you paint, the more you kind of get used to just eyeballing something and saying, okay, this is what's happening. This bush had more red. I'm just going to add a little more. There, you notice how bringing that blue really helps balance the sky. A little more blue in here as well. Kind of a bluey green, but that's good. I like that. Need it to be everywhere, so I'm settling it up a little bit. There.